Hey, what's going on, guys? Kevin here, and today we're going to be talking about 9 mistakes to avoid as a beginner photographer. So, Christmas was just a few days ago, and so if you're watching this, there's a good chance you recently just got your first mirrorless or DSLR camera. And I wanted to put this video out there and just highlight some of the more common mistakes that I see new photographers making. Many of these mistakes I made myself as well when I first got started. And really the idea here is just to give you a good jumping off point, help you avoid some of these mistakes, some of these common pitfalls, and help you transition into learning this new skill as smoothly and as easily as possible. And so with that being said, let's actually go ahead and jump right into the very first mistake that I commonly see new photographers making. Okay, so the very first mistake on the list is going to be not shooting enough. Now, photography is like any other skill that you want to pick up and learn. If you want to get better at it, you've got to go out, you got to put in the reps, you got to put in the time, and you got to put in the practice in order to get better. And if you want to get better as quickly as possible, then really you need to be practicing every single day. So what I would recommend is try to each day find like 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes to set aside and just pick up your camera and just play with it and practice. Now, you don't have to do anything particularly special. You don't have to go out and photograph like sunsets and waterfalls and mountain ranges. Literally just pick up your camera and photograph anything around your home. It could be your office, kids, pets. It really doesn't matter. The main thing here is just get your camera in your hands and start to get familiar with the controls, start to get familiar with changing the different exposure settings and see how those affect your final image. And the more you do this, the quicker you're going to pick up the skill of photography and the better you're going to get. Okay, so the second item on my list is going to be not seeking feedback and critiques from other photographers. Now, I know for a lot of people, that idea right off the bat is going to bring up feelings of anxiety or maybe make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. But the reality is you really just have to try to get over it and find people, whether it's a group of people in a Facebook group, or maybe it's a friend or a family member who's also a photographer. The idea here is just to find people who you trust that can give you good, high quality, constructive feedback on your work. And the benefit here for you is that it's going to allow you to kind of get past those plateaus in the quality and the progression of your work. If you have more experienced people in your life, you can kind of key you into the things that maybe you don't even realize you're missing in your work or that you're doing wrong. It's going to help you avoid those plateaus, avoid getting stuck and having these periods where your work really isn't progressing. And it's just going to allow you to become a better photographer much more efficiently. Okay, so the next mistake we're going to talk about is not putting your camera in manual mode right from the very beginning. Now, there's going to be photographers who disagree with me on this point, but quite frankly, I don't really care because I 1000% believe I'm right on this. When you're first getting started in photography, just put your camera in manual mode right from the very beginning, and that includes setting your ISO manually as well. That's what I did when I first got started, and I thoroughly believe that it benefited me in the long run as a photographer. Now, the benefit for you doing this is simply that understanding exposure and understanding the exposure triangle and how these different settings interact with each other is absolutely fundamental to understanding photography. You need to know this. If you want to be a photographer, you need to understand exposure control. And quite frankly, there's really no excuse for not understanding it. People learned it long before we had cameras that had these automatic modes. And today we've got all sorts of resources from Google to YouTube to everything else that's out there. It's really not that difficult. Yes, it's a little bit more difficult than just putting your camera in auto mode, but it's really not that hard. And if you just commit to it, you're going to learn it much more quickly. And once you understand it, it's going to come like second nature. And that's only going to benefit you down the road as you continue down this photography journey. All right, so the fourth mistake that we're going to talk about is shooting in JPEG instead of RAW. Now, I believe this is a mistake for new photographers for a couple of reasons, but the first is simply that the quality of the JPEG files that different cameras create can vary widely from one camera to another. Some cameras will produce really great looking JPEGs, whereas there's other cameras that do a really bad job of processing JPEG images. And when you're first getting started and you're really trying to learn, whether or not the photos that you're taking are really good or high quality, what you don't want to do is be discouraged because you have a camera that produces really bad looking JPEGs. By shooting in RAW, it's going to give you the maximum opportunity to really look at the photo that you actually took. Did you actually clip the highlights? Did you clip the shadows? What is possible by editing this photo? What can you really bring out of it? And when you have that full data from that full RAW file, it's going to give you a much better idea of the photos that you're actually taking and not masking it through potentially a really bad looking JPEG. All right, so this brings me to mistake number 5, and that is not editing your photos. Now, this one's kind of closely aligned with mistake number 4, and the idea here is once you have your RAW files, you need to be editing them. Editing is a huge part of the entire photography workflow process from beginning to end, and a bad edit can really ruin an otherwise really good photo. And before you ask, no, this isn't something that's just new in the digital era. This is something that's always existed. Even if you go back into the film days, go back in the dark rooms, photographers were dodging and burning and masking even in the dark room. So this has always been a big part of photography. And editing is a skill that requires a lot of time to learn in and of itself. So the sooner you begin, the better you're going to become at editing, and the more you're going to be able to maximize the potential of each image that you take. All right, mistake number 6, and that is lack of patience. Photography is not a skill that you learn within a couple of weeks, a couple of months, or to be honest, even within an entire lifetime. You could be a photographer for decades and there's still gonna be things that you feel like you could improve upon or things that you can still learn. But what happens is a lot of new photographers get into this skill, this hobby, this passion, and within a couple of weeks or a few months, they're not seeing the results that they think they should be seeing. Their images aren't looking the way that they want them to look. And then they get discouraged, they put down the camera and they quit. And so what I'll say is if you're going to go into learning this new skill, you have to go into it with the mindset that this is going to be a lifelong process. You're never going to reach the finish line. You're never going to know all there is to know about photography, and it's going to take time to improve. It might take a couple of years before you get to the point to where you really feel confident and comfortable with the quality of work that you're producing, but you will get there eventually as long as you continue to practice. So you really just need to find enjoyment in the journey, enjoyment in the process of learning. That's really going to be how you find the maximum enjoyment in this passion, this hobby, the skill, whatever you want to call it. You need to find the joy in the learning process. And if you can do that, then this will be something that sticks with you for a lifetime. Okay, so that brings us to mistake number 7, and that is not seeking out education and or mentors. Now, if you want to learn anything new, you need to go out and you need to find good educators. You need to find good resources to help kind of teach you the skill that you're learning, and photography is no different. Now, if you're watching this video, then I would say you're already on the right track. You're on YouTube, you're looking at videos, you're watching this one, and that's great. And YouTube as a whole is a fantastic source. Pretty much anything that you could ever want to learn about photography is out on YouTube somewhere. The only problem is finding it and finding it when you need it. So to that sense, YouTube, it's a little bit of a problem just because that content and that information is so scattered, and you really kind of have to know what it is that you don't know so that you can search for it before you can find it. Now, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more structured, I would definitely recommend going to somewhere like Udemy or go to Skillshare. There's some fantastic classes and courses on both of those platforms that can give you a more structured approach to learning photography from beginning to end. And I would definitely recommend going and checking those out. Again, like everything else in this list, if you follow that, it's going to help you along that process and help you learn just a little bit more quickly. Now, if you want to check out Skillshare, I do have a link that I'll post below that'll give you a free month. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't have any sort of communication with them. This is not a sponsored video. It's just simply I've got an account with them, and everybody who has an account, you've got a link that you can share to invite people. And so that's all that is. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave that link down below. You'll get a free month and you can go search for some courses. And along with that link, I'll link to a couple courses on Skillshare that I think might be a good starting off point for new photographers. Okay, mistake number 8, and that is buying gear that you cannot afford. Now, this is probably the most important mistake to avoid that's on this list today. And photography is an interesting animal in the sense that as we begin to dive deeper into it, the more passionate we get about it and the longer we do it, there's this temptation to want to buy better gear, to buy better lenses, better camera bodies. And there's no shortage of new cameras and lenses and accessories and gadgets that you want to buy. That will never end. There will always be something new that you want to get. But what you have to do is just make sure that you're not putting yourself into a financial situation that is hard to recover from. You don't want to be in that position. And the one thing that I find beginners doing is they think that if I have a better camera body or if I have a nicer camera lens, I'm going to produce better images. And I'm not going to say that there isn't some truth to that. I'm not going to say that gear doesn't matter. Gear does matter to some degree. However, it doesn't matter to the degree that you think it does when you're first getting started. You can absolutely produce amazing images with a sub $1,000, kit lens and camera body. Gear does matter, but it doesn't matter as much as you think it does at the very beginning. And so the main thing that I want to get across here is just don't spend money that you really can't afford to lose on higher end gear. Just be responsible, save up for that new camera body, save up for that new lens. And when you can reasonably and comfortably afford it, then upgrade your gear. Just don't put yourself in financial situations that are going to be hard to recover from. Okay, so that brings us to our 9th and final mistake, and that is buying gear simply because it's new or trendy. Now, obviously this is kind of related to number 8, and I'll also say that, look, if you've got the money and you can comfortably afford it, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but what I will say is, if you're a new photographer, you really need to be focusing on the fundamentals. So If you're going to go out and buy something that's new or trendy that just came out, or really anything at all, just try to be intelligent about it and maybe ask yourself before you purchase that new thing, what is this item going to accomplish for you that your current gear doesn't already? And if you've got a good answer for that and you think it's really going to actually help you improve whatever it is that you're trying to do, maybe it's a longer lens and you're trying to do wildlife photography, hey, awesome, go for it, buy that lens. Maybe it will actually help you. But just try to make those conscious decisions, be intelligent about it, and don't simply get caught up in the hype of new things because you'll just end up wasting money and time that you could be devoting towards actually getting better at your core skill. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for this video. Those are the 9 mistakes to avoid as a beginner photographer. Now, this list wasn't meant to be all-encompassing. I'm sure I could probably think of some others, and if I do, I'll do another video maybe down the road. But yeah, if you found this video useful, definitely leave some comments down below. If you have any questions, you can leave those in the comment section down below as well. Really quick, shameless plug. I do have a new Facebook group that I created, and if you want to ask questions there, I'm going to be able to get back to you probably a little bit more quickly there just because I'm in that group more often. So I'll leave a link to that down below. It's a private group, but it's free to join. Just click on the link and submit a couple questions and you'll be in. And then, but yeah, other than that, if you have any other questions, comments, definitely, like I said, leave them down below or join the Facebook group. Like the video if you found it helpful or useful or whatever. It would really help out the video and the channel to help get this video spread out. Subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, other than that, guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.